everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today, we're gonna be doing a good old-fashioned get ready with me, just like I used to do on my channel back in the day, and it is fitness related, since a bunch of you said that you'd be interested in having me do a fitness related one. So I'm already just gonna be jumping right in. I'm gonna use the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, throw that on my face while I do the intro real quick. So the way that I do the fitness get ready with me's is that I pick a particular fitness topic, and then I go through and scooch you to the side as I explain different things about it. So for today, it's gonna be all about the leg day. And so we're gonna go through a whole bunch of different movements. And if that sounds like something that you're interested in, awesome. If not, perhaps this is not the video for you. Just a quick thing to let you guys know why I like talking about fitnessy things and like why I'm qualified. I have a master's degree in sports and health sciences, as well as 3 personal training certifications specifically revolving around weightlifting. And then I also have over 10 years of personal trainer experience through the course of my job with the Air Force, as well as just on my own. I guess that's like why I feel like I can talk about it. But no matter what, all of the things that I show you guys today, anytime that you are looking to start any kind of fitness program or anything like that, I always recommend seeing a doctor first, making sure that it is within your capabilities, and then also utilizing a personal trainer that can be there and make sure that you're doing the movements correctly. Because even though I will do my best to portray in the videos the proper movements, it's still always best if you have someone there with you that can be critiquing you, making sure that you're doing things properly so that you don't get hurt. For today, we are going to be running through just leg day. And I'm going to show you guys how to not be intimidated by a barbell, and some free weights and different things that you can do if you're wanting to get some thick thighs and work on your butt and all of that. And so we're just going to jump right into all of that, and we're going to be using the BPerfect Carnival palette that is the new Antidote one. And I will let you guys know as we're going through what products I'm using on my face. So we just finished both of the Milk products for the priming of the eyes and the face. I'm gonna let that soak in for a second, and then we are going to jump into all of the things. So to start off, I'm going to be using on my face for foundation the Benefit Flawless Brightening Foundation, and mine is in the shade 3. Alright, so one of the first things to consider if you're going to be using a barbell to do leg day is that there are several different sizes of barbell. You don't have to go with the biggest one. They do also have, in addition to the one that you'll see primarily at gyms, which is the regulation male size barbell, they do also have a women's size barbell, and they also have training size barbells that are lighter. And so if you don't feel comfortable lifting with a super duper heavy barbell, because the regulation men's size one is 45 pounds, the female one is 35 pounds, so it's already 10 pounds lighter. And then training bars can range in weight from like 7 pounds to like 20-ish pounds, depending. And so I would recommend, if you are someone that does not feel comfortable lifting a huge barbell right off the bat, to either use a training bar or to use a PVC pipe, because PVC pipes weigh nothing. And so that way you can really kind of focus on your form. I personally prefer to use just an empty barbell rather than a PVC pipe, because I do like a little bit of weight to be on me. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just kind of flying away with it. And so for me, I would either rather just do my own body weight as far as just like air squats or something like that, or grab an empty barbell instead of a PVC pipe. But some people really enjoy using PVC pipes when they're first starting out. If your gym does not have something like that, you can go to like literally any Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and they sell PVC pipes for like a couple bucks. Like, they're not particularly expensive. You don't need to go out and like buy a Rogue PVC pipe for like 50 bucks. That's not necessary at all. So as we're going through, I will attempt to explain like different progressions of things, so that way we're not starting off with like, immediately I would like for you to lift 300 pounds. We're gonna start off with a lot of your like body weight type movements and some of the less complicated barbell movements, so that way we can show a bit of a progression so that you don't have to worry about immediately having to jump into something super complicated. So one of the first things that I like to start off with is a box squat, and you can do this with a chair or a bench or anything like that, and you can also do it with weight or without. And so it's essentially where, as you can see in the video, you are positioning yourself at the edge of whatever bench or seat that you have, and you are going to come into the seated position just on the edge. You don't want to like go into a full sit where you're leaning back. You just want to come and balance to the edge of that particular bench, and then you do want to relax in that you release your breath, and then you take another breath in and then stand up. And breathing is probably one of the most important things when you are lifting weights, because your muscles need oxygen, and it also teaches you how to tense up your muscles so that way they are ready to move. And so you don't want to be in a relaxed state as you are weightlifting. You want to tense up your muscles, prep them, get them ready to go, and then do the movement. For the concealer, I was using the Marc Jacobs Extra Shot, and mine was in the shade Light 150. So part of the reason why this particular movement is so great is that in addition to just building leg strength, it's an extremely functional movement, meaning that it is something that we do on like a regular basis. Anytime you are sitting down and standing back up, you are essentially doing a variation of a box squat. So it is really, really great for increasing your strength, your mobility. I highly recommend, and you can see that as you progress, you can start to add weight. And so if you want to use a barbell as you are trying to build up more strength, if you feel like you're good on just using the body weight and you want to add some weight, you can absolutely do that by loading a barbell. And then for this particular movement, I would have the bar resting along your shoulders. So there are two ways of having a barbell loaded onto your back. You have either a high bar or a low bar rack. High bar rack means that the bar is resting across your shoulder blades. So as you have it up and you are gripping the bar, it is resting behind your head on your shoulders. At no point should you have a barbell resting on your neck. That means that it is too far up. You want it resting on the platform that is your shoulders, but it should never be something where it's like all the way up. That is too far up and you are going to hurt yourself. You want it resting on your shoulders. And my bronzer for today is the Butter Bronzer by Physicians Formula. So then we can get into some of the regular squat movements, and first one on there would just be your typical air squat. That is where you are squatting without any weight. It is just using your own body weight, dropping down to the ground and then standing back up as mobility allows. Some people are not as far along with their range of motion as others, and so my biggest thought process with squatting is there is proper form, but at the end of the day, you want to focus on what's comfortable for you. And so ideally you want your feet to be positioned somewhat around shoulder width apart, but if you need them to be a little bit further apart or a little bit closer together, that needs to be at your own comfort level. I'm not going to be someone that says that they must be exactly shoulder width apart. To me, if you are uncomfortable in any movements, you are not going to be likely to do them. And so I want to make sure that at the end of the day, you are doing it in a range of motion that is comfortable for you. What that also means is that as you have your feet positioned at whatever width apart you want your legs to be, if you need to point your toes out a little bit more or point them in a little bit more, whatever allows you to do the movement is what is important. And then from the side, you can see that we don't want the knees to extend far beyond the feet as you are coming down into the squat. That is something that you do want to be paying attention to. If you are not able to do an air squat without coming down and then having your knees super duper far forward, one of the things that I recommend is that that's usually indicative of a lack of ankle mobility and hip mobility. And so there are two different types of stretches that you can do for that to increase your mobility on there. The first one is that you come up to a pole or a chair or anything like that that you can grab onto, and you will go down into the squat position and hold onto that bar with your hands, so that way you can practice moving forward and back, getting comfortable in that squat position with your feet flat on the floor, because that is something that you want to make sure is that you are increasing your ankle mobility so that your feet can always be flat on the floor. So I would say of all of the form things, feet need to be flat on the floor. You don't want your weight to be rocking forward where you're on your toes. You also don't want it to be rocking back where you're on your heels. You want it to be positioned fairly where if this is your foot, and then like this would be the portion going up to leg, so heel, toe, you want your weight to be roughly positioned at the ball of your foot, but like the back portion of the ball of your foot. And so you don't want the weight to be super far back or super far forward, because that will change how you're rocking on there, and so you want it just to be flat. So in addition to grabbing onto something, you can also do that you come up to the wall and you try and get as close to the wall as possible without touching it, squat down from there, and that's going to also work on your mobility, making sure that your knees are not coming too far forward, because if you are trying to squat in front of the wall and your knees have a tendency to come forward, your knees will hit the wall. And so this is a great one where start like a foot or two back, go into a squat, and then walk yourself forward. And then you can also, once you feel more comfortable, get closer to the wall, then squat down. And so those are two really good things to help with increasing hip mobility, ankle mobility, so that when you are in the bottom of your squat, you are in appropriate positioning, so that way you're not hurting yourself or leaning too badly one direction. I'm gonna move into blush real quick, and for that I'm using the Mora Beauty Sunflower Blushing Goddess Duo. That looks like this. You got a yellow and a red, and so I'm just gonna smoosh them together and see what kind of color I end up with. I know that Mora Cosmetics blushes are a bit more pigmented than some other, they are. And so you do need to make sure that you are blending them out. That's starting off real powerful. So from the air squat position, you can start to add weight if you feel more comfortable doing so. There are a few different movements that we will get into today. This is by no means all of the different movements that we're gonna be touching on, but this is just a few to get you guys started. So I would say the first type of squat that you could do that is weighted is by grabbing a barbell, and you're going to do what's called a goblet squat. In the video, you can see I'm holding the dumbbell, and it's kind of upright. You are just going to drop down into your squat position the same way that you would for an air squat, but you are holding that weight in your hands. And part of why this is such a great movement is that it also increases your balance, because you are having to hold the weight. You're not like hugging it to your chest. You are holding the weight kind of in front of you, resting on your hands. And so it is really great for increasing that balance, also increasing your arm strength and teaching your body how to work together as one singular unit, because you have to be able to hold the weight with your hands while also squatting down. And so it's just a really good movement to kind of slowly get into training your body on how to work as one singular entity. Then from there, we're gonna actually get into the barbell side of the house for squatting. And so there are two different types that we will start off with. There's your very standard back squat, and then the front squat. For both of them, I think one of the big mistakes that I see just on loading the weight is that people have the bar too high up when they're looking to get into position. You don't want to have to get on your tippy toes to pick the weight up. You want to be able to have yourself be very balanced, flat foot, very much a solid, stable position on there as you are picking the weight up. So for me, I personally like to have the bar a little bit lower so that I can really get into position. And so I use kind of my chest as a guide. And so you can see in the video as I am lining up for it that I check to make sure that the bar is in line with my chest, and then I get into position from there. So for the back squat, after you have checked that the barbell is a good height for you, you're going to bring yourself underneath the bar, kind of in a swooping motion. So from there, once you feel like you are in position, regardless of how heavy of a weight you have on there, you should treat your breathing movements as if you are lifting heavy, because we want to train the way that we fight, and so we want to make sure that our breathing is appropriate at all times and that we are setting ourselves up as if we are lifting heavy all the time. The way that you are going to do that is once you are set, take a deep breath in, load the bar. And so what it means by loading the bar is when you take a deep breath in, you're gonna raise your shoulders up. So it's, I am now loaded, right? My shoulders are prepped, they are ready to go. They are a solid structure for the bar to be resting on. And now I am going to stand up and step back. As you are stepping back, you should not step back like 10 feet away from the rack. Ideally, you want to take 2-3 steps maximum to get yourself into position. If you need to adjust your feet, that's fine, but ideally 2 to 3 steps to get yourself in position so that you're ready to go. And then you're going to lower yourself down into the squat. As you are standing the weight back up, you want to pay attention to what your knees are doing. Ideally, you do not want your knees to kind of buckle in. You want to be pressing your knees out. And so you're kind of doing almost like a butterfly movement with your knees, because it's not extreme like that, right? So it's a slight pressing of the knees out, and that's essentially recentering the weight. Also make sure that you are lifting a weight where you do not feel like you are leaning too far forward or that you're kind of falling backward. You want to have your center of gravity be over the trunk of your body. You don't want to be falling forward or falling back. For my highlighter, I'm going to be using from Gourmand Girls the Bold and Brilliant Highlighter Palette. This fancy lady right here. And I think I'm going to go into Moonstone, which is this super crystal white one. I think that also helped to calm down the blush a little bit. I definitely have found that with Moira Beauty that their blushes are very, very pigmented. They're beautiful and really, really nice colors, but for someone like me that doesn't pay attention to what they're doing, you want to make sure you're not going super heavy-handed with the color. Otherwise, you're going to end up looking like a big tomato like I am right now. All right, so then from the back squat, we're going to move into the front squat. And for that, you are essentially, instead of having the weight be behind you, you're going to have it racked in front of you. There are several different ways in which you can do this depending on what your wrist mobility is, because for a front squat, to rack the bar appropriately, you need to have a good amount of wrist mobility. So if you are someone that doesn't have good wrist mobility, there are a few other ways in which you can still accomplish a front squat without having to worry about your wrists. And one exercise that you can do to kind of warm up your wrists is if you interlace your fingers together, you're going to go back and forth with your hands like this first, then kind of forward and back, and then we want to do a circle and then go back the other way. And this is just really good for kind of warming your wrists up. You can also just do singular circles with your hands where they're not interlaced and then go back the other direction. And we just want to make sure that our wrists are nice and warmed up. Another thing that you can do is a bear crawl, where you are walking on the ground, and that's a really great way to warm up your wrists as well as increase wrist mobility in general. So for the front squat, we're going to start off with probably for the least amount of wrist mobility is going to be where you are crossing your hands over your shoulders after the bar has been placed on your shoulders. And again, we are wanting to load the bar on our shoulders. You don't want it to just be resting like on your collarbone or anything like that. You want it resting on your shoulders. And the way that you do that is just remember the key phrase, elbows up. If you have your elbows up, you are automatically creating a shelf with your shoulders for the bar to be resting on. No matter which way you are gripping the bar, just remember elbows up. All right, for brows, I'm going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz in the shade Blonde. You also want to be paying attention, just like with the back squat, to your knees, that you are doing a bit of an outward pressing motion with your knees. And you also want to make sure that you are staying upright. So if you feel like you are tipping very far forward on the front squat, which will be more likely to happen than on a back squat, perhaps use a little bit less weight, because you do want to make sure that you are staying upright on here. The front squat, I think personally, does utilize your core a bit more, because in an effort to stay upright, you are having to utilize your core a little bit more than on a back squat. It engages slightly different muscle groups and is a bit more of an all-encompassing movement. Beyond the back and the front squat, there are additional barbell squat movements that you can do that are a bit more complicated, like overhead squats and things like that. But I think for today, we will stay away from those. We'll just stick with the more simplified movements. There are also 2 different variations that you can do, in addition to just the normal going down into the bottom and then standing it back up. The first one is going to be a pause squat, where when you are in the bottom, you will exhale, count to 2, and then deep breath in, stand it back up. So what it is causing you to do is to release all of that air that you have held in, and now you're having to relax your muscles and then retense everything back up as you breathe back in, and then stand it up. And so that is something that for those of you that struggle to stand the weight back up, it's a great exercise to do. You definitely want to be doing that with lighter weight. You don't want to go super duper heavy on there, because then you're just gonna get stuck. And so you want to make sure that you are doing a weight that is comfortable enough to where you know that you can stand it back up, even if you were pausing in the bottom. All right, I am getting into the Antidote palette, and look at this. Oh my god, it's so pretty. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so excited to use this guy. Just all the fall vibes. My eyebrows, like, I've got a bold color going on today. All right, I think for today I'm gonna stick on this side, because I've done a bunch of green looks recently, so I kind of want to stick more with like the reds and oranges for today. So in addition to the pause squat, there is also a half squat, which is kind of the opposite of a pause squat. 2 reasons why a half squat is beneficial. The first one is that it is increasing the time under tension. So anytime you are doing a movement, if you are doing the full range of motion, going all the way down and then coming all the way back up, at the end of that movement, you are releasing the tension before you take another breath in and then go back down. And so your time in which the muscles are tensed is not very high. But if you're doing a half squat and kind of continuously bouncing in and out of the halfway movement, that is increasing the time under tension that your body is working with. And so what that does is, in addition to increasing your strength, you're also increasing your muscular endurance on there, which means that overall your body will be able to sustain itself for these exercises for longer. And so doing time under tension is a really, really great thing for increasing muscular endurance. So in addition to all of these different types of squats, we can also move into lunges. And these are great because, again, it is one of those compound movements that requires your whole body to kind of be working together, because you are doing not just that you are going up and down, you are also having to move forward, maintain center of gravity. And so I think that lunges, whether it be just static standing lunges or doing walking lunges, are great exercises for you to kind of train your brain and your body on how to work together again. So for a static lunge, the things to be kind of focused on are making sure that you are staying upright again, pressing your knee slightly out. Again, we don't want the knee to be kind of caving in on there. So you can do lunges with or without weights. And so the first way that we have on here is just a nice static lunge where I am stepping forward and then stepping back. You will also see some people, as they're doing lunges, that they will actually have their knee touch the ground. You will have others where they will hover. And my thought process on there is, you know, whatever floats your boat. Just don't slam your knee into the ground. But if you feel more comfortable coming all the way down and then resting your knee on the ground and then standing back up, so be it. Once you feel like you have the static lunge, you can try and do walking lunges. And the big thing with this is, again, making sure that you are maintaining proper form so that you are not leaning too far forward, that you are not off balance. You want to make sure that you maintain control as you are moving forward. And you're just going to alternate your feet. I am someone to make sure that I maintain control because I am definitely someone that kind of is a little bit off balance sometimes with my movements. I make sure that I am stopping at the top as well as at the bottom, and so I will bring my feet together in between each step that I take so that I recenter myself, regain my balance, and then step forward. And especially as you start to introduce weight, having that balance on there is very good. If, however, you feel like you are confident enough to just continue to step forward, then by all means. As you add weight, there are a couple different ways in which you can do that. The first one that we are seeing on here is where I have a barbell loaded on my back. I am just stepping with that. I would say this is probably your first progression of doing with weight because, again, you are able to maintain a bit more balance on there with having the bar racked in that way. So if you feel comfortable with having the weight, you can do overhead, which is where you press the barbell all the way up. And for that, I would highly recommend starting with just an empty bar. And this is, again, one of those movements where you want to make sure that you have good wrist mobility before attempting it, because your wrist will be kind of jockeyed back a little bit as you are holding the weight up. So you do want to be cautious. From the overhead, you can also use kettlebells. And so as we can see in this video, I have two smaller kettlebells that I'm holding up overhead, and then I am walking with those. And this one, I would say out of all of them, is probably the one that will work the balance of your entire body the most, because in order to steady two different objects in your hands as you are walking requires a very solid amount of core strength, very good arm strength, wrist mobility. So doing this with kettlebells is probably the most advanced way because you are utilizing the entirety of your body as you are going through it. You know, I'm kind of feeling just keeping this as like a matte look on here and not going too crazy with any shimmers, just letting the mats take over. I think I might do a slight color on the inner corner though, but that is it. So in addition to working the front of your legs, which is what all of these squats and lunges are doing, you also want to make sure that, as with all things, you are balanced. And so we want to make sure that we are working the back of our legs as well. So for that, you have two different types of movements. You have a calf raise for your lower leg, and then you have a deadlift for your hamstrings on the back of your leg. So for a calf raise, there are two different ways in which you can do this if you don't have one of those calf raise machines. The first way is that you have your feet flat on the ground, and then you are raising them up by going up onto your toes, as you can see in this first clip. And then the second half of the clip shows the opposite version, where instead of raising your calves up, you are lowering your heels down. And so you do that by standing up on a box or something. Any of those like step class type things that you can step onto is great for it. You're going to already be on that, and then you're going to lower your heels down and then stand them back up. And so that is a bit more of an extended calf raise. So I would start with your feet on the ground and then just raise up as like a half calf raise. Then as you feel more comfortable, move into the box version where you are on the box and then lowering and then coming all the way back up so you get the full range of motion. So for deadlift, this is definitely a bit more of a complicated movement. And so you want to make sure that you are being careful. The two things that I see that cause people to do this wrong the most is that they curve their back, like cat back, where they arch their back. You do not want to do that. This is something where you want to, as you can see in the video, as I am getting set, my back is straight and flat on there. There's no arching of the back at any point, and as my hands have gripped the bar, I am also making sure that my shoulders are rolled back. So you squeeze your shoulder blades together in the back before you begin the pull. And what that does is that takes some of the weight off of your lower back. And you also want to make sure that your knees are ever so slightly bent, that you are not on full lockout with your legs, because that is how you access your hamstrings rather than just focusing on your lower back. And so the way that I do deadlifts is I prefer to have them be working hamstrings as well as lower back, because that also reduces the risk for injury, because you are in fact focusing on doing a compound movement rather than having your legs locked out. I am using the Aracelli pencil liner in the shade Chocolate for my lower line here. You'll notice on there that as I am coming up, it is not so much that you want to focus on hyperextending your back all the way back. You're not wanting to like go crazy on there. That is the other thing that I see the most that people do incorrectly, is that they're really wanting to hyperextend their back. That's also how you increase the risk of injury. All that you are wanting to do, your finishing movement for a deadlift, should be pushing your hips out rather than hyperextending my back. My back should kind of remain fairly straight. I am just pressing my hips out, and the key phrase to remember for pushing your hips out is squeeze your butt cheeks. As soon as you squeeze your butt cheeks, your hips will automatically kind of press out. And so you're pressing out your hips, squeezing your butt cheeks. That is your finishing movement, not hyperextending your back on there. And the progression that you can see on there for deadlift, there is a deficit deadlift, where if you feel like you are comfortable with lifting the weight in a normal deadlift, if you want to increase the range of motion, you can get a plate to stand on, and that is where you are increasing the range of motion by going beyond the normal range that you would do. And so if you are someone that struggles with getting the weight off the ground but has no issues with standing it up once it is off the ground, deficit deadlifts are great for that. For my under eye, I was using the Ico Black Magic Mascara. Debbie used this in our live recently, and so I figured I would give it a go for the lower lash line, and it's pretty good. It's not bad at all, so I don't mind that. And then for the top lash, I am going to be using my Essence I Need a Miracle Volumizing and Strengthening Mascara. So in addition to a deficit deadlift, we can also do the same type of concept as the half reps that we were doing for squat. You can do the same type of half rep for deadlift, where you are increasing the time under tension. So as you can see in this clip, that is what we are doing. You stand the weight up like normal for the first rep, but then as we come back down, we do not set the barbell down. You stop kind of mid-shin and then pull the weight back up. And so it's this continuous time under tension where at no point are you letting go of the bar. That is what we are focusing on for this. And that really increases your muscular endurance, where if you are someone that struggles with that finishing pull, this really helps out with that, because the time under tension is increasing your body's capability to stand weight up when you're tired. And so that really helps out with that portion. So I think for today, that is all of the movements that I kind of want to get into with you guys. I don't want to go too crazy. There are so many additional variations to everything that you could do. But for today, I think that's kind of a good start to things. For my lip, I am finishing up with Moira Cosmetics lip gloss in the shade Hot Stuff. So nice bright pink on here with a lot of shimmer in there. I can definitely say it's very pigmented for a gloss. It's also not super sticky at all, which is really nice. And so pretty nice finish, but this is the completed look. I am very colorful today. beyond the color that I was ready for. But I would love to know what you guys think of it. What do you think of all of the leg movements? Would you like for me to do another get ready with me where I go more in depth on leg movements? I know that the next one that I'll do, a bunch of you guys were asking for just upper body movements in general. One of the first ones that I had done was specifically for how to get to where you can do pull-ups, but I can definitely do just in general for the upper body, what type of movements you can do. More than happy to do that. Let me know what you guys think. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you did not. Let me know either way. Drop down in the comments if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns about any of the movements. If I didn't explain something properly, just let me know down in the comments. More than happy to let you guys know, do a follow-up, whatever you need, just let me know. And if you made it to the end of the video and you have not yet subscribed, I would love it if you could get subscribed my way. Come join my family on here. We talk a whole bunch about indie brands, do lots of very colorful makeup, and just all the things. And so I would love to know what you guys thought of this. Were you happy to see me bring back my old style get ready with me's with fitness content? Would you rather I talk about some other things? Let me know either way. And other than that, you guys just go have a good one.